Good evening, everyone. This is the special council meeting of February 10th, 2021. Notice of the special meeting stating the date, place, and time has been disseminated as required under the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975. Electronic notice was provided on February 5th, 2021 to the local source and Star Ledger, noting that the meeting would be conducted through the Ring Central program and containing information on how to access the meeting. The same information was posted on the city's website, Linden TV, the bulletin board, and the front door of City Hall. Copies of the agenda are also posted on the city's website and Linden TV for the public. The purpose of the meeting is as follows. Number 1, snow removal, and number 2, emergency operation procedure. Official action will not be taken, and portions of the meeting may be held in executive session. This meeting is now called to order. Mr. Clerk, can you please conduct the prayer and flag salute?
God of the universe, look thou with favor upon these here assembled, and bestow thy guidance upon the members of the governing body in their deliberations. This we ask in thy name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Ormond?
Here.
Javik? Mr.
Here.
Caldwell?
Present.
Mohammed?
Excused.
Busby?
Excused.
Roman?
Excused.
Strano?
Here.
Blaine?
Here.
Medina?
Here.
Hickey?
Here.
Mrs. Yemakaitis?
Here. Okay, we're going to move on to discussion on snow removal and emergency operation procedures. I'm going to call upon Mayor Armstead to make an opening statement. Mayor Armstead?
Yes, good evening, everybody. First of all, thank you all for attending. One of the reasons that we decided to have a special meeting is that I was trying to get at least all the councilmen in the room so we could have an open and candid discussion on ways that we can improve our snow removal. Now, I just want everybody to understand this is not a session where we're going to beat up DPW or anybody on that accord. I think that the night's meeting is just to see if we can come up with some solutions to try to see if there's any way we can improve snow removal. I mean, we can discuss things like maybe alternate no parking when the road is snow covered on alternate streets. I don't know how we could do that. Potentially having more supervisors available during the night of storms. There's a number of things that we can look at, but I think there is some room for improvement, and I just hope that we can come up with some ideas tonight to try to make it a little bit better. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Okay, I'm going to open the floor up for discussion from the council and department heads. Please use your raised hand icon. Okay, Councilman Strano.
Thank you, Council President. I feel it's incumbent upon me as probably the most senior member years-wise on council, next to Mayor Armstead, who's 3 or 4 years ahead of me. We've seen a lot of these different snowstorms. We've seen the way the different departments have evolved over the years. For starters, I guess you could say, from what I can recall, we had well over 100, maybe 120, 130 people working at DPW alone 25 years ago. I think we're down to maybe a little bit more than half of that now. I think it's 80. And of those 80 people, several of those people are administrative or staff people there. So and that was done to, create a more efficient department. We have, obviously we have, less boots on the ground now than we did then. Um, there's been um, I guess, institutional knowledge that we've lost through attrition with people retiring. We have we want to see people that are still green yet, that are still learning the ropes, so to speak. Um, that will improve with time. And unfortunately, things like snow plowing is almost an on-the-job training kind of a proposition. You can watch as many videos as you like. You can ride with somebody as much as you like. But when you get hit and baptized with a 2-foot snowfall, which in some parts of the state of New Jersey are being looked at as a record snowfall for New Jersey, it's going to leave a lot of uh, unsatisfactory conditions that won't be taken care of on the day of the storm or even the day after. Sometimes it takes a week to crawl out from under these kind of snowfalls. And that's true for any municipality that's in our geographical area. As I said before, this is in North Dakota. We're not equipped, to have 2 feet snowfalls on any kind of regular basis. That being said, I'm not making excuses. Certainly, there's always room for improvement. Will it ever be perfect? No. And as it's been stated in some towns, some streets are going to get taken care of first, and some streets are going to be taken care of last. It's just the nature of things. You can't be everywhere at the same time in the same place. So some of the notes that I want to make mention of, so everybody can get a handle on what it is that we were facing in this storm. First of all, none of us have been alive in our lifetimes to see how a department could get depleted to any degree since 1918, when there was the last pandemic in New Jersey. So we were short staffed right off the bat. We were down on drivers. We were down on supervisors, and we did what I consider, under the circumstances, a pretty good job, considering what we were faced with on that end. Some of the complaints were, people driving with the plows up. Well, when you're getting called out, and don't forget, there's several different departments here. It's not just DPW that plows. We have public properties that are out there as well, and municipal garage, and they all kick in. It's all hands on deck. We also, I wanted to mention that one of the other things is the aftermath. We've got to get a handle on these people that are putting snow in the streets and then calling and saying that, we didn't hit their streets, or we didn't plow. They only saw a plow come by one time. I personally took a drive around the city. I didn't just look in my work to see what I was looking at. And sure enough, you drive down the street, and unfortunately, some parts of the city resemble, the midst of Jersey City, or where the density is such that you have, one building that's housing, 5 or 6 cars. 3 of them are on the street. Several of them are in the driveway. Of course, they're all full of snow. People pull out their cars, push the snow off onto the street, clean out their driveway, pull their car back in, and then the cars that are on the street start piling snow into cleaning their cars off onto the street, and you've got a mess. I've seen it myself. I thought I was going to break an axle in my car just trying to get down. I think it was Baldwin Avenue. It was one of the first complaints that I saw that was posted on social media. And that's another thing too. We have to remember, a lot of people are sensitive to what's posted on social media. If it was if social media did what it was supposed to do, which was supposed to be, something that could be used in constructive manner, would be great. But unfortunately, the same people that want to complain have the same audience, and all they want to do is, use it in a destructive manner. That doesn't help things. And, you have to remember, anytime anybody has a major problem, they can always call the mayor's office. They can call DPW. They can call their councilman. The calls will be taken. They'll get to them as soon as they can. But you have to remember, people aren't sitting around during these kind of storms waiting for people to call. They're busy. We'll get there, and they have. And maybe it's not going to be to everybody's liking as to when they get there, but that's just the nature of these kind of snowstorms. Now we have supposedly some more snow coming. Oh, another thing too, I think, if I'm not mistaken, maybe John Venditto can pipe in on this, but we also ran through all of our salt and our brine. So it was one of those kind of storms. I've said my piece. I know all the other departments probably want to, have their say as well. And thank you for your time, for your listening to me. And, hopefully, that answers some of the questions. Thank you, Council President.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Strato. Mr. Venditto?
Yeah, we almost ran out of salt. We actually had, we never actually fully ran out, and then we were able to even grab a couple of salters full from the county for insurance. So in this type of storm, the salting all comes afterward. It's not the type of storm where we brine, we brined ahead of it, more or less as a warning to residents, like it's coming. And the brine works best on, say, the storm like we had over the weekend, or even the last couple of days. It's gonna dissolve it. It's supposed to build a bond in between. But in very cold temperatures, it really is. It looks good, and it gets people to know there's something coming. But the salt that we saved up, we used it judiciously till the end of last week's storm, and we didn't fully run out, so we used it where needed. We had an order of salt out, and a couple of people called on our behalf, called Morton Salt, called some people up at the docks. We tried everything, and we got our salt the other day. So there's never enough salt, so we even ordered more. So that much I can say we're fortunate, and we're salting whatever we can right now as needed. That I could say for the salt. As for any other, if you'd like, I can detail how we went about the storm, if that's what the council would like, Mayor and Council, if you'd like that, and give you what the way we proceeded and what we said before the storm.
Yes, please proceed with that, Mr. Venditto.
Okay. I wrote down a bunch of notes. We, as we do before every storm, we had a meeting with everyone, all the supervisors, and the municipal garage also, and usually Nick Melnick from Buildings and Grounds, sorry. Because Nick is one of our active supervisors. He actually, we ironed this out after the storm of December, that Nick will always, we give him, he actually takes care of the 9th ward. And you'll see when we call them wards, and I hope everybody understands, it's just the old name that we call them. They're really districts. They're almost identical to the collection district, okay? It's easier because they have all boxed off borders. So we had our pre-meeting. We knew a big storm was coming, and we had all the plows were put on the weekend before, because we had collection that Friday. So we met on a Friday. Sunday, we got in there early before the storm hit, and we waited. And we had, like Councilman said, we did have a couple of supervisors that were out with COVID. One we thought was COVID, but he had just some bad flu. We had 4 of our plow drivers, normals. They were on quarantine, but they were fine. They didn't have COVID, thankfully, and they were available for last Sunday. So when the storm came in, we had planned to give it. It was working into our hands for this time that we decided we were going to let everybody loose at 11 o'clock and start dropping the plows. So this way it would work into our hands for a 16-hour shift. So we wouldn't have any issues with the union, because the 16-hour DOT limit. Now, we knew a state of emergency was declared. So the trucker that we usually call, his trucks were taken away to the DOT. When we have a big storm like this, we can call. We have a vendor that's a trucking company from Linden, Mac Trucking, if I can say the name. They were already called away by the DOT, and their other only truck was unavailable. So in essence, those big trucks turned out to not be the big turning point. For us, it was trying to get down the smaller streets, the tighter streets. And that, I think everyone can agree, turned out to be the biggest issue. We had, for the wards that we didn't have a supervisor, the regular supervisor in, Reggie Webb had COVID, Bill Palma had the flu, and we used our most experienced guys that are used to those wards to handle the wards. We jostled some guys around, and every storm, they never go as you would like them. You never know exactly. This one we knew was going to be a long storm. It was, we sort of wanted to pace ourselves, and we knew we had to nail it the first time and get a good first shot in. And it was a very long storm. It didn't exactly help us out in that manner. As everybody knows, it really snowed until Tuesday. Not as heavy as it did all day, all Sunday morning. So it's like Mike Tyson says, you got a plan until you get punched in the mouth, and then everything kind of goes, I wouldn't say went haywire, but trucks, we have a list of, I have a list of, we didn't have major breakdowns until later in the storm, but we have the usual wiper blade break off, the usual, we had a couple plows that had some issues. We did have one or two serious hydraulic issues that were repaired because we have a hose making machine in our DPW shop. And what we can't do at our shop, they do at municipal. So we really didn't get hamstrung on the big stuff. Once again, it was the smaller things. So as you all know, we had recycling that we postponed and we basically pushed forward and eventually got by the end of the week, including the trash and the garbage. And we just kept at it. So we know that it wasn't perfect. I'm not going to try and explain every single situation, and I'd like to answer questions or see how I can be helpful for those with concerns. And, like I said, we knew a big one was coming. I counted today that 33 of our guys weren't around. The last big storm we had was in 2016, was a huge nor'easter. I remember that one because I myself got stuck. I was plowing back then too. And 33 of our guys weren't even here then. And a lot of the guys that are here now were laborers then, weren't even plowing. We had a good amount of turnover. So nobody had really been through one of these big boys before. So when we created the routes, we made sure we had people with experience in every route, okay? And, all we can do is just keep on pushing it. That's what we did pretty much. Dave, if Dave wants to chime in at some point, he may chime in, but as of right now, I can kind of be more helpful answering questions rather than going down, unless you'd like me to go down. I have some issues that, I have some issues of what we can do better, but I'm sure this is going to be a wide forum, so I'll cede the floor right now.
Okay, John, I have Mayor Armstead has his hand raised. Mayor?
Yes, thank you. John, one of the things that I noticed when I was out there, well, number one, I want everybody make everybody aware that Nick Pantina was out there during that storm. He was driving around trying to make some observations of his own, and I appreciate that. He was out there with Jerry Bishop, just trying to go through the town to see where we were lacking. So I appreciate him being out there, and he has basically communicated to me that he felt that some areas were given a little more attention than others. And that's not to start a war with council members, but that's something that has to be addressed holistically. And maybe the appearance was they were given more attention than others. Maybe we had men who weren't as experienced in some of the other wards. Now, one of the things I noticed, and just a general observation that I noticed, is that I would drive down the street and I would see the plow had gone right down the center of the street. But as I'm approaching the street, I could see on some blocks there were no cars parked. So that's certainly a street that plower could have actually came back down and almost plowed to the curb on at least one block. So, to that end, and I'm going to say this, I don't want anybody taking the offense. If Nick Pantina can be out there watching, I expect everybody who's anybody who wants to call themselves in a supervisory capacity to be out there with their men, making sure that this job gets done adequately. And again, if you got a bunch of young men out there who don't know what they're doing, then the onus of responsibility is on you to be out there and make sure that they get it done right. I know you've been here for quite some time, and maybe you may be comfortable in being in the office there. But the real thing that should happen here is you know that you got an experienced men out there. You should be out there with them, making sure they get the job done right, and get them. And you've got to find out why they can't get the job done right. If it requires giving them some additional training and some sit-down talk, well, then that is the job of the supervisory people. The people who work in your capacity have to make sure that these men know what they're doing, so that when I drive down a block and I see no cars on it, I don't just see that one plow blade to track down the center of the road. I mean, if I go to the next block and I see cars on both sides, yeah, I expect to see it right down the center, because there's not much they can do. But if I'm on a block and one side of the street there's no cars, that block should be clean to the curb. And that's something that I observed. There were several blocks that I noticed in the 4th Ward where cars were not parked and they just weren't done adequately. And again, if it's the training that we got to do, we'll give them the training. And if they're not up to speed, then I expect every supervisor who can be out there to make sure that they do get up to speed. And I know Reggie was out because he was sick, but that doesn't preclude yourself from being out there, and every other supervisor that's capable of providing some sort of direction from being out there. And that's what has to happen. And I don't want to hear about people being home or people being inside DPW when we got a storm out there. I want to see our men in boots on the ground, making sure that these new plowers who don't have the experience are being taught properly. And I don't care what it takes, we got to do it, because I know no storm is perfect, and you're going to have complaints. That goes with the territory, but the object here is to try to minimize those complaints by training our men to be a little more to be better at plowing.
Mayor, I just want you to know, sir, I was out on every other hour. I was out taking a ride towards the extent to one time I would go all the way up to the 9th and 10th. I drove through your 4th Ward many a time, sir. I drove by your house just to make sure that you weren't blocked in. I'll have you know, sir, that I always, between Dave and I, we rotate on who's going to go out and who will answer and see what's going on in the shop to oversee it. And with a truck that has all-wheel drive, it's very, I don't get stuck. And I'm either in the 8th Ward or I'm going to the 10th Ward. I'm always making rounds to see where we are and trying to see how we can move forward as the storm progresses. Through my experience of seeing we've been through 1, 2, 3, or 4 times. I don't drive down every street, no, but I drive through every ward multiple times, sir.
Again, we have a lot of new guys, and what I'm hearing is that these new guys aren't trained enough, or they just don't have the experience. So they don't have the experience. I mean, that means we've got to be out maybe a little bit more and give a little more, be a little more intense on the supervision when they're out there. And that certainly, is the responsibility of the upper management in your organization. And that's something that we really got to focus on, because at the end of the day, the mayor's office is fielding a lot of calls. Okay. Now there's some situations I know. In my observation, I found there were some streets people who complained that we couldn't even get a truck down because cars were parked on both sides of the road, and the streets were very narrow. They couldn't even get a plow down, and we had to send, I think, a
loader.
or a front end loader.
Front end loader.
To get the stuff out. So we have situations like that, and we do understand those. And I think as a council and with the police department, we're going to try to address those blocks to try to make sure there's only parking on one side so we can get the plows down there. But again, what really has to happen is that if we have men who aren't too familiar with plowing, then we got to get out there and show them how to plow and make sure that they're being supervised more intensely. And that's really what the whole key to resolving a lot of the inexperienced problems.
Storm management is very important to see where we are and see what wards are lacking. When the storm is an extended storm, you have to make sure nobody's falling too far behind. And that's that takes a while. You have to give everybody a chance to get through. When the storm keeps coming, that's when, when we've made our first pass and that first pass looks like we haven't been there yet. That's when, you're in for a long night. And I understand your point. And we're out there, but I appreciate your input.
Okay. Councilwoman Caldwell?
I just wanted to ask, John, you said that one of the vendors that we contract out wasn't available. Is there any possible way that we can have multiple vendors that we could have on call on a list just in case we need extra support?
We try to reach out to other vendors, and it was fruitless because guys that are plowing are trucking companies, and a lot of them get scooped up by DOT. So we try and stay local.
Oh.
And we weren't fortunate, but it once again, there was back in the real old days, we used to use a guy who lived in Tremley Point, and he was always available to us. But since then, Mack Trucking sort of took over that place, and they have to keep contracts going too. Like I talked with the main owner, Rocky Mack, about trying to get an agreement together. So if it snows, we get you first after a certain measurable. It's almost like a legal thing that we will have to do. But we were able to use them for snow removal. They had the time, and they weren't, the storm had been gone. When we decided to remove snow from Wood Avenue, they were available. So we used them for a couple of nights. They're pretty expensive, but everybody is, but we are shopping around and trying to get other vendors, of course, Councilwoman.
Yeah, so maybe in the future, I'm not here to beat anybody up because everybody was working very hard. Thank you. I appreciate it. But maybe just try to plan ahead, and maybe if you get any RFQs, you could bring it to our attention and we could vote on it, and we'll have extra vendors to help us out.
Absolutely. We do have money put aside for that in the budget too. So it's a matter of securing them before they get scooped up or have some other work there, but I understand your point, and that's absolutely something we're working towards again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Councilman Strano?
Thank you, Council President. Getting back to cleanups after the storm, and getting back to the mayor's comments about cars being parked on one side and being able to plow to the other. Depending on what side of the street that you're on and what curb is available to plow to, you always have to be cognizant of the fact that these small, tight streets aren't capable of handling that big, heavy equipment to go down to plow to one side. So if you're in a pickup truck, which is considered a pretty light vehicle, even a mason dump, and you've got an angled plow and you're pushing heavy snow like that, there's always the risk of that plow sliding off into those parked cars on a tight street. And the last thing anybody especially somebody that's new wants to do is slam somebody's parked car in a snowstorm, because that creates a whole nother rash of legal endeavors there for the city and for the insurance commission. So what we want to do is, like, what John was saying, you make that one pass, and sometimes you come around for that second pass. Speaking as somebody who has experience, somebody who's driven snowplows, although they were on county roads, they weren't on small, tight, municipal roadways. You turn into a zombie after about the 10th hour, and it's dangerous. And when the snow is incessant, and it looks like you didn't even touch it after you come around for the second, third, fourth, or fifth pass, it's very disheartening, especially when the complaints come in, especially since you've been busting your tail all night to do your job. But getting back to the cleanup, though, John, I think it was maybe it was Councilman Javik or somebody else. I don't want to steal their thunder, but they wanted to know about, in the past, we used to have the small bombardiers, small track vehicles. Now, you can't plow 2 feet of snow with those trucks or those little tractors, but, post-storm, for cleanup and getting to those corners, especially now with all the handicap ramps that are out there that we have to clean out, which I know public properties plays a part in, but we have handicap ramps at every corner of the city. And, you really can't expect a homeowner to, if it's near in a residential area, to clean out those crosswalks and those ramps. So I was wondering what the possibility might be of putting that in the future capital expenses.
Well, I have to tell you, Councilman, what we try and do in the meantime, the Bombardier Company is out of business because we used those machines until we couldn't get parts anymore. And they're really, the company that made them, they only make like railroad trains now and maybe airplanes. They're a French Canadian company. There's another brand of equipment called a trackless, which is something that we used to use. Actually, in its later years of life, it spent most of its time in the 7th Ward because we couldn't cross the highway. It wouldn't make it because it got beat up so bad. And it's an articulated piece of, it was made for doing intersections. And it also does other things. You have attachments for grass cutting. You have attachments for throwing snow. I did put that, I brought that up to the capital budget a couple of years ago. And it's not a cheap piece of equipment. That's the problem. It hinges in the middle and it's got a hydrostatic transmission. So it's just, you keep on stepping. Great piece of flexible machinery. And it can be used during the summer too. The Bombardiers fell out of favor also because, there came a point where I don't think they were bonding out they were allowing capital purchases for for uses for something like a vehicle that can only be used a couple of months a year. At least that's what I remember when I was told, where's my Bombardier? Because I learned on those. I drove my first 5 years plowing on Bombardiers. So, I mean, they do make other pieces of equipment. The trackless is probably one of the best things I've ever seen. And it's in Frank Facchiti, who's no longer working with us, used to do your 7th Ward. And that's the big problem now because we have all the handicap walks. So I tell our guys, and I gave them paperwork and we did some blackboard training. When you do an intersection anymore, you can't push like you used to. Don't block the crosswalk because the handicap ramp is there. You try and tell your guys this. There's hundreds of them in every district or every ward, every plowing route, thank you, that we do. So we're forced to, you end up with a cross of snow, a cross of pavement, and then snow at 4 different points. So it's tough. We can only do that with a pickup truck right now. The trackless machine it's not a budget buster, but it's somewhere around 150,000. But it also has other attachments that you can, so that's something that, I can always show that I have information on it. It's something I can bring to our next committee meeting. In the meantime, the most flexible piece of equipment we have is the pickup truck with 4-wheel drive. And, that's an acquired, that's something that our guys with not a lot of experience, we give them because they don't, they tend to not wreck them. And our guys learned a lot. I have to tell you, these guys kind of got baptism by fire. As you saw with the storm of last weekend, I was almost glad it came by because it was maybe 5 or 6 inches of snow that we just scooped right up. We were able to clean a little bit of the last storm up while we were there. And we've got more ongoing weather. So, but yeah, the intersections, it bothers me to see like anybody having to traverse over those. And unfortunately it happened, here and there.
Okay. Councilman Strano, in committee, could you look into, possibly getting that piece of equipment with the track, seeing the feasibility for the city? I know a lot of the phone calls I got were 7th and 8th Ward, and they were asking for the Bombardier. They were used to it for many years. That thing got into tight places. So I think it might be something worthwhile to look at, even with some of the dead ends were issues in the city. So, all right, if you guys could look at that in committee, I'd appreciate that.
I have
Yeah,
the salesman's numbers right here.
We'll definitely bring that up next committee meeting and see where we can. I don't think we can buy anything that'll be here before the end of this storm.
Right, obviously.
But for the future, be the next year and the year after that, if we can get it out of capital. And like John was saying, those pieces of equipment are just, somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000, depending on what you get with them.
Yeah.
If I'm mistaken, right, John?
Yeah, and it also handles the L word leaves. It can actually project leaves that has a bigger front end attachment that scoops them up and shoots them into a truck. So, I mean, at least they did their homework, and it has at least a 3 or maybe a 4 season application. It can cut grass. It can do all, it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, go to the equipment show, and I love looking at it.
I know the versatility is great, but all that means is you're going to kill it sooner.
Well, that's always a possibility. But,
Yeah.
Well, at any rate, I'll make sure that we have sales brochures and you can see it and then share that with council afterwards.
Okay, we'll bring that up at the next committee meeting.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Medina, you have your hand up.
Yes, Council President, thank you. I just wanted to, I guess, give 2 comments and whatnot. And, when the snowstorm was coming down, I didn't make any phone call. I just basically was observing and taking the phone calls as people were calling it in. And, I just reminded folks that, we haven't had a storm like this in, God, I don't even know, 4 or 5 years. So it was a record storm. The only thing that I observed that terrorists quite some time now that first time I ever seen it not going to the curb. So that was a little bit strange to me. And then I see DeWitt and Orchard Terrace being a 13-block stretch that connect to the state and the county road, not go to the curb with absolutely no cars are on the street. So that's my only concern. But the positive thing, when reached out to John and Dave, they're very reactive to a lot of the concerns, especially the curbs and the amount of snow that, because if we didn't go to the curb, we were out 4 or 5 feet. They were very reactive to the residents' complaints. I know the other thing was the recycling, and like I explained to people, the guys were exhausted, and then they were doing the overnight shift on Wood Avenue. So I kind of get it, but I appreciate what the guys did. I appreciate John and Dave and Jerry Bishop. I spoke to him on Saturday as well, and all the supervisors. But it was an unprecedented storm, and I just want to say I think they did a pretty good job based on the level amount of snow that came down and the resources that we had. So I just want to point that out and just give my 2 cents on it. That's all.
Thank you, Councilman Councilman Medina. Councilman Strano, sorry about that. At the board.
Yeah, before I forget, I want to publicly thank all of those that participated and did, what I consider a yeoman's job under the circumstances. We're no disrespect, but we're always thanking the police and fire department, but this is home territory for me. And I want to thank you to that department that encompasses all of the community services. Thank you.
Council President, could I?
Yes, Mr. Venditto.
I'm sorry I didn't use the raised hand icon. And
That's okay.
I just want to thank, just while I have the opportunity, thank Chief Hart and Monica Oliveira and Chris, got his name wrong. Gunther, thank you. They cleared a lot of streets for us and helped us with snow removal. As always, police and fire are always there for us, and likewise. So, for whatever we were able to do, they were there helping us. So once again, Dave, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Councilwoman Hickey.
Thank you, Council President. I have sentiments of many here. Yes, the Traffic Bureau, Police Department, Fire Department has to clean around all the fire hydrants. DPW, first of all, this was an enormous storm. This was a storm. It came down hard. It came down fast. My street wasn't even plowed. I refuse to call and complain about it. We have a lot less men and women than we used to have in previous years when, people would brag to be in Linden. And, maybe someday we will come to that point. I have to say, Dave Martinez was amazing. Anything I called him on, I think in everybody's wards, we have a couple dead end streets and stuff that are like always the forgotten streets when we have issues. But this storm too they didn't really predict it and or call it until the last minute. Usually they do give quite a bit more notice, whether it's right or wrong, we're prepared. But it was a lot more snow than any of us anticipated. John, I didn't bother you at all. I just kept bothering Dave. Sorry, Dave. Rob Squalia was amazing. We have to remember that a lot of our employees retired, and these are all new snow plowers, and many of them don't have experience. And we can work on them being trained, and I think John Venditto mentioned that, and so did the mayor. And I have to give a shout out to one of our city employees, because I always like to give credit where credit is due. I was going out in my car on Sunday, and he didn't know I was watching, but we have an employee on DPW, Shane Goulet, I believe his last name is. Goulet. He was talking to neighbors in the 10th ward, helping them move snow because we're supposed to get more snow. And he was just so respectful, so helpful. And he had no clue that, you know, I was kind of keeping an eye on. I tried to be very patient during this storm because it was a tough storm. Many of the streets now, I do have to agree with the mayor. You know, the hard part is with many of the residents parking on the street. We have Academy Terrace, which is always a nightmare. DPW was out there the next day. I think Lisa can agree. And she probably exceeded her phone minutes as I did. But DPW was out the next day, removing snow from those streets, I believe, Lisa, or the next day, and sent us emails, and we probably both posted it to make residents aware. But the problem is many residents aren't as considerate as they used to be many years ago. I'm saddened to see the anger and everything that comes out. And unfortunately, sometimes it happens between all of us here too, but it was a tough storm, and I thank you guys, and I thank the fire, police, everyone who participated, and I'm sure every council person and DPW worker and of course the mayor is very happy that we don't have a consecutive week of the phone calls, messages, emails that we received, because I was very exhausted after last week and I didn't even shovel. So with that being said, you know, hang in there, guys, team effort. We figure it out for next time. One suggestion I do have, John, though, is behind McManus, any extra snow that may be in the 9th or 10th ward, we can use that park there. Certainly the kids would probably enjoy it as well, as a little bit of a dumping ground. The one issue I had is next to McManus, there was cars parked there, so there was tons of snow left there. And then it was so cold, nothing really melted. So, and everyone probably has the same issues, but I think we should utilize the school grounds where available, with fields or a park, for dumping some of our snow, so it isn't as much work and a longer ride or trip for our workers. And that's all. Hang in there, everybody. We have more snow coming. Jerry Bishop, I didn't thank you either. I know you were driving around with Nick Pantina, so you know what, guys, we figured it out. We'll never make everybody happy. Have a good night.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Mr. Venditto, you wanted to say?
I know that Jerry wanted to make a mention. The only thing, thank you, Councilwoman, for that. And if we were able to use properties like the schools, you know, it's Board of Ed property. Of course, I would consult with the mayor and Dan Antonelli to see if that was you know, that would be a local repository for some snow. I have to check with the DEP guidelines on where we are allowed to put snow. And Nick, and yeah, like where we put it now is we have a mountain down in by what they old, well, we call it Mathis Spring property, way out by the PAL baseball fields. And that is not going to get us in hot water with the DEP. So I'm writing it down. I'll look into it. I'll speak to the mayor and Dan, and you know, if we can move forward, we certainly will try. And we can move forward.
Okay. Jerry Bishop, you had your hand up?
Excuse me, Council President. When Jerry's finished, can you call on me because I don't have the raise icon on my phone, please?
Okay.
Sorry, Jerry.
Okay, thank you, Council President, and my apologies, Councilman Blaine. I just wanted to bring to your attention that Director Pantina and myself, as was stated earlier, we were out for hours and hours. And we witnessed a number of things and basically just observations. Guys were moving. Guys were up for 18 hours plus. We get it. And I believe that the residents get it. If there's any way I could respectfully request that we get words out to our residents that a snow event, certainly an event of this magnitude, is a community event. We get together for concerts as a community. We get together for street festivals as a community. We have got to get together for snow events as a community. Is it convenient? Absolutely not. Who wants to leave their warm house and their slippers and put on the boots and the jacket and get out? But it's worth it. It's worth it for you. It's worth it for us. It's worth it for the greater good. And if we could get just a little bit more participation, everybody plays a part. Every single person plays a part. John, the idea of the trackless unit, terrific. We'll talk about that in committee. Maybe we'll kick around some other ideas. Instead of spending $150,000 on one unit that can only cover so much ground because it's one unit, maybe we can consider buying 4 units for $40,000 or $50,000 a piece that are like a Bobcat. And now a number of wards simultaneously can experience some removal of the snow after it's been pushed. Anyway, everybody on this call and all the residents that aren't on the call play an important part. Talk to your neighbor. If it looks like their driveway can hold 3 cars and you only see one, now's the time to make friends. It's a community event, just like gatherings, like I said, concerts and street festivals. Let's get it together, and I think we're all going to have a better experience in a shorter period of time. That's my piece, and I appreciate the microphone time.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, Councilman Blaine. I'll get to the rest of you, council, if you.
So first of all, I just want to apologize, Jerry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to make sure the council president called on me. I just want to commend DPW on a real serious job that they had and the task at hand. I went out shoveling like 4 times myself and just at my house alone. And they were out there consistently. Now, what happened was maybe they hit some streets 3 times and didn't come for the 4th one, and it got a little messy. But they were there. And I will say that when Michelle and I called dispatch with a street that wasn't plowed, they came right over and cleared it up. So kudos to you guys for doing an excellent job on that behalf. The other thing is, as Jerry is saying, this is a community event, because a lot of times when people are shoveling out their cars, they're throwing the snow right back into the street. You can't cry wolf if you're throwing the snow in the street and your street is not, and it looks like your street is not being plowed, because it really is. I observed it on my own block several times. My only thing that I really want to make sure that this happens is if we're salting or priming streets, especially side streets, we should have one consistent rule. If we're going to prime side streets, all the side streets get primed or none get primed. Don't start priming side streets on one side of town and don't do the other, because we will receive complaints about that. And that's all I have to say. But again, the DPW did a real serious job, and kudos to you guys for that.
Thank you, Councilman Blaine. Councilman Medina.
Hey, I'm sorry. You know what? Jerry actually hit on that point. I want to talk about, making it more of a community event. I know we now have a public information person on board. What I experienced, and I try not to be too confrontational with people, especially when they're blowing snow off their driveway into the street instead of their properties. And I try to educate folks. We have a lot of new folks here, specifically in the 9th Ward. what are the what not to do and what to do. But I also wanted to touch base on the fire hydrant as well, since we have a lot of construction and a lot of houses being built. I had to call the fire department the other day because one of the builders, I won't mention any names, decided to bury our fire hydrant because he wants to make room for his prefab foundation when it comes in. So it's just, I think since we have a PR person, I think that being proactive in communicating with the residents of the do's and don'ts and how to be a great neighbor, I think is going to play an important role since we now have a public information person. So just wanted to make mention of that, but that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Medina. Councilwoman Caldwell.
I just wanted to, I didn't get a chance before. I wanted to say thank you, Jerry, and thank you, David Martinez. And I concur with Councilwoman Hickey, with Shane Gillette. Everything I asked them to do when we had the snowstorm, they were right there, and I appreciate you. And even Nick, when I reach out to you, you always there. So this was not a perfect storm. I mean, this was not perfect at all, and we can't make everyone happy, but I appreciate you and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Ormond.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to concur with Councilwoman Hickey about how hard everyone did work, DPW, from the top of the list to the bottom. Everybody did their absolute best, and it is appreciated. And I mean, John Vendetto, you and I were on the phone like crazy that day. You even heard me telling people as I was driving by, stop throwing the snow in the street. We're not going to send the plow back to clean you up if you keep throwing it in the street. It was that bad. But what I do want to address is a proactive approach to Academy. Academy Terrace is not going to ever get any better with snow removal, whether it's 6 inches, 12 inches, or 20 inches, unless we have a plan that's going to proactively address the fact that a great portion of that area are apartment dwellers. They don't have driveways. We have the whole entire 900, 800, 7, 600 block, which are in apartments. And then there's also the MacArthur Street people that park. There's another series of apartments further down once we get, I believe, into the 9th ward. It's just massive apartments. And even if it was a 1-to-1 ratio apartment to car, we still don't have enough room for them. So we have to figure out what we can do to address that problem to ensure that we don't have to go back 2 days later asking people to move their cars so we can clean up something that may have been able to be cleaned up in a decent manner right from the jump. So Mr. Vendetto, if you can come up with some sort of plan of action for that particular block. I'm not going to scream about every other block because, hey, snow is snow. But that one is going to present a problem regardless of how much snow we get, just because of the nature of the housing situation that we have.
Councilwoman, I understand. And we did it kind of piecemeal too, because we were kind of running out of time trying to do Wood Avenue at night. In the past, we would also go down University Circle, and we'd also go up Hollywood. We ran out of time. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't do that now and try and attack that. But right now we're kind of, and I can still coordinate that next effort. We just finished Academy finally, I believe, yesterday. So we can still approach those and do the same thing for snow removal now that we're not working at night on those other streets. And if you'd like, I'll coordinate that for sure.
Well, something like University, I don't know how the heck you guys even manage that, because that's my ward. I campaign, I walk that ward with cars on both sides. I can barely sometimes even fit my van between the street without snow, with cars being parked. I mean, it's pretty crazy. So you guys have your hands and have your work cut out for you with that tight of an area. I mean, like I said, without snow, 2 cars, without snow, 2 cars can't pass. That's how come a lot of them are now one ways. We have to have a plan of action how we're going to address future snowstorms, so you guys don't have to go back and have cars cleared just to remove snow 3 or 4 days later.
I would like to consider, I know that not to drag it out too long, but I know that Lindcrest does have a series of garages back there, but
Mhm.
you know, everybody supposedly gets one, or maybe not everybody. So that helps. But I have yet to see the one-car family anymore. It seems like so many families, so many
lot.
households are 2 cars. So yeah, it's definitely a problem.
Yeah.
Where-
But just for the record, like I said, I appreciate everybody, Jerry, Nick, John, your supervisors, and mostly the guys that were out there behind the wheel. We have to give them a break. A lot of them are new. We all crawled before we walked, and we were all new on a job at one point in our lives. And we have to kind of like have that mentality that when you know better, you do better. So next go round, these guys will know a little bit more than what they knew the first go round, and we hope that they do better. But we have to also be in that mode where we're going to train, teach, and teach them well. And everybody has to be accountable for that training. All supervisors on deck. That's it.
Follow-up training. I agree.
Okay. Mr. Pantina, you have your hand up?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I want to thank Mayor and Council for setting this up. I meant it to address an open forum of seeing how we got a lot of comments and complaints and gripes, whatever, throughout the storm, and everybody was out there working full diligence. I am biased because it's my department, or our department, and Public Works and Buildings and Grounds and Transportation and the garage and engineering with support. They all played a part, although obviously the guys on the ground, they played a longer part because they were out there from, I don't know, Sunday the 31st through now. Regardless of the hours or the cutoff hours or the allowable hours, they were out there and they were doing what the best they can with the resources that we have, with the lack of manpower, equipment failures, vehicle failures, stalled vehicles, disabled parked cars. And as everyone has said so far, and thank you for all your comments, they're all good. Yeah, it wasn't the perfect storm, but it was the biggest storm in a while. And I too remember that January '96 storm, and there's probably been storms in between that. And as a resident, regardless of where anybody lives, you shovel your driveway out and then you get plowed in and people get unhappy. And that's the nature of the beast because that's how it goes. But, I agree that with the resources we had, and John was saying with the perception of brine and salt and with the parking, there's some things hopefully that we can do and we can learn from this. And, I can't compete with 45 years of experience of some people who are driving through plows and driving through the streets, but there were observations made, and yeah, some streets get hit first, some street gets hit last. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. What are you going to do? Increasing on some of the comments made about a group effort or a community event. You see how other people are doing it, or how other people deal with it, not just Linden, but neighboring towns. John pulled up some information today, and I don't have it in front of me, but a neighboring town, I think it was Clark.
Yes, actually, Mr. Pantina, it was, Mr. Bodak, our city clerk, emailed it to all the council members.
Okay.
Okay, so
All right, well, but that's good. So, I mean, they put it on social media as a good thing, well, on Facebook or whatever, and that's a great thing. And we were hoping that, obviously, I know each of the council people, they have their council persons, they have their own Facebook or social media or whatever to get the word out. And every part helps, and everybody knows it, but they do it anyway. They throw the snow in the street, and they stop when they see a city vehicle or a county vehicle coming by, and then they do it again. And yeah, as far as the cars being parked, sometimes we observe, it's like, oh, look, there's no cars parked here. And we called in the Public Works and they set some plows down. Well, that's great, but doesn't last that long because somebody's got a chair out there. I saw a vacuum cleaner out there. I mean, one of the things that I had looked into, and I shared it with Chief Hart and a couple of staff, Monica and Captain Capsiopa and Lieutenant Gunther, is again, looking at neighboring towns, they have alternate side of the street parking for snow covered streets. Some have 1 to 3 inches, some have any type of covering, whatever it is, but they have an ordinance in play where if there's snow on the street, snow or ice or some type of emergency, you can't park. Yeah, okay, where are they gonna park? I don't know the answer where they're gonna park, but if you have alternate side of the street, at least Public Works or who's ever out there could maybe concentrate on one side of the street and get into the curve, maybe. I don't know, I'm not gonna argue with that, but it's just, maybe they'll have a better time at it as opposed to saying, oh, we have no cars parked on this street. Why is this street better than others? Well, part of it was probably because there was no cars on it or it was a snow route. One comment that came back is like, well, where are they going to park for where there's apartments? Again, I don't know, but little things, little steps, maybe they could help in the future. Other towns have parking in municipal lots or in schools or like people were saying, parking on somebody's lawn. I feel that these little things, and we can learn from ourselves, but we can learn how other people are doing it too. So that's all I really have to comment on. Thank you again for entertaining us and being kind. And again, I thank my staff and all the divisions and police and fire and everybody else that participated in these storms, and they're not over. We're getting more snow possibly tomorrow, Tuesday, and the rest of February, who knows? But that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Pantina. I have 2 council people that have their hand raised that didn't get a chance to talk yet, and then I'll have Mayor Armstead finish it up before we go to public comment. Okay, Councilman Roman. Councilman Roman.
Thank you, Council President. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I'm just chiming in the first time here, but I'm just wanted to thank DPW. I know I know some of you guys didn't see home for 48 straight hours, and I know that a lot of the guys work double shifts and whatnot. I just appreciate it. I know the support appreciates it. I know it was very frustrating with our dead ends. West Morris, Mitchell, they're still impassable almost right now. They've gotten better with the sunshine, but I'd really like to be involved in any planning or any suggestions or ideas that I can offer to when we get a storm like this. Maybe I can help talk to the residents or just devise a plan to really help the dead ends. I got like 9 or 10 of them, and they were all in tough shape. And you get Shane to come over, and Shane did a great job with one of our dead ends. He cleaned the problem up. We were very fortunate to have his help on that dead end, but we don't have the resources to get all 10 of those dead ends, and that's just in the 6th ward, let alone the other 10 wards. I don't even know. I might not have the most dead ends in the city. So I'd really like to be involved in any type of plan or talk that we can do to increase the effectiveness of getting these dead ends. I mean, Westmore specifically, they were parked on both sides. People just threw the snow in the street. It was rough. And I fielded a lot of calls, and I knew that DPW couldn't be everywhere at once. So we just kind of eat those up and take our time with it, and we'll all work through it together. But in the future, if we can just really try to devise a plan for plowing these dead ends, I appreciate it, and I'd like to be involved in that. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you,
Thank you
Councilman.
for everything everyone did.
Okay, Councilman Javik.
Yes, Council President. First, I just want to thank everybody for doing such a great job. I mean, it was tough conditions, and everybody worked together the best they could possibly do. I mean, what we got to do in the future, though, we got to put a campaign together for people that are snowballing into the street, because that was one of the main problems in my ward. I mean, it wasn't that we weren't doing a job, but they would come back and it was like they didn't even do the street because of snowballing into the street. Another thing is on a lot of my streets right now, I still have cars that have not even been moved once. So we really got to educate the people here by putting an alternate parking in, an alternate street size back and forth, so we can clean off one side, as was mentioned previous. And if we have to take these cars, let people park, like, I mean, by school late, we can maybe put it in the parking lot here from early while we move one side of the street, and then let the other cars go to the other side. But for people not even bothering to move their cars, doesn't make any sense at all. How are we possibly going to get all the snow up? And earlier, Councilman Strangler mentioned about the volunteers and so forth. I was mentioning that to him. But if we can get a smaller, rather than even a truck, something to get in between cars like we did in the old days, I think that would be a great thing for us. So thanks again to everybody for doing a great job. Wood Avenue came along great. I mean, the side streets are a little rough in my ward, but the main streets are perfect. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Javik. Okay, Mayor Armstead? Before I go to the public comment, I'll have you wrap this up and then we'll go to public comment.
Yeah, I just want to say to all the council members, first of all, again, thank you for attending. The guys from DPW, thank you for doing a decent job. I think, under the circumstances, you did do the best you could. We don't normally get 27 to 30 inches of snow. But there are some things that we really have to look at, and I know Nick Pantina had mentioned ordinances in other towns. We may have to look at some of those things to try to see if we can incorporate them into our strategy. Those dead-end streets that we talked about, those streets clearly sound like they could be candidates for no parking on one side of the street during a snowstorm. So we'll have to look at every ward, every street individually and come up with a strategy per ward, per street, per district, and go from there. But I do think that we are going to have to change and have a few new ordinances on the books to help us with this problem. So that being said, I'm going to turn the meeting back over to you, Michelle, and all council members. Listen, any idea that you have, bring it forth. I mean, this is the whole purpose of this meeting is for us to come together and figure out ways to make this better. So all your ideas are welcome. This is not a my ward versus your ward type of deal. This is a let's get the city cleaned up in a snowstorm issue, and that's what we're going to try to focus our energies on. And then because when one ward wins, the whole city wins, and I think we just have to take a holistic approach to this to the problem. Look at the city as a whole.
I agree, Mayor. We're all in this together. I too would just like to thank Nick Pantina, Jerry Bishop, John Venditto, Dave Martinez, and all the supervisors. They were very responsive to any phone calls we placed to them. So again, thank you for that. Okay, we're going to move over to the public comment portion of the meeting. Okay, if anyone in attendance would like to speak, now's a chance to speak on the public comment portion. If you wish to be recognized, please use the raised hand icon in the program to identify yourself. You will then give your name and address as at any council meeting. Failure to do so will result in your being muted and not recognized further. If you're registered more than once, you will only be recognized to speak one time under your first registration, as with any council meeting. When public comment is open, the ability to register will be closed. Does any members of the public wish to speak? Please use the raised hand icon. Again, reminder, please use the raised hand icon. Any members of the public that wish to speak? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
All in favor? Okay.
Aye.
All right, we're gonna do a roll call.
Oh,
Who's the?
Councilwoman Ormond made the motion, and I believe Councilwoman Caldwell seconded it.
No, Hickey.
Vice versa.
Oh, it's vice versa? Okay.
Mrs. Ormond,
Yes.
Davik,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Strano,
Yes.
Blaine,
Yes.
Medina,
Yes.
Hickey,
Yeah.
Mrs. Yemakaitis.
Yes. Okay, have a good evening, everyone. Thank you again, all department
Good night,
heads and
everybody.
council members for attending, as well as members of the public. Stay safe, everyone.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Hey.